Order Air Flight 004. The unthinkable descent. In the dark, peaceful sky above the jungles of Thailand, a wide-body airliner is facing an unspoken emergency. Moments after takeoff from Bangkok, a system malfunction begins forcing the aircraft into an unexpected descent toward the mountains below. Blindsided by the failure, the pilots struggle to regain control. Every passing second makes it harder to handle, tension filling the cockpit as the plane starts to slip from their command. The question looms, will they manage to save it before it's too late? This is the story of Lauda Air Flight W004. It's late on May 26, 1991. A Boeing 767 prepares to depart Bangkok International Airport after a short stopover. The aircraft began its day in Hong Kong and is now bound for Vienna, Austria, carrying new passengers picked up in Thailand. The 2-year-old 767 belongs to Lauda Air, a leisure airline founded by the legendary Formula One champion Niki Lauda. In command is Captain Thomas John Welch, a highly experienced pilot with over 11,000 flight hours and ratings on several Boeing jets. His first officer, Joseph Thumer, has more than 6,500 hours of experience himself. Together with 8 cabin crew members, they are responsible for 213 passengers, tourists, and travelers from Austria, Thailand, and Hong Kong. At 11 p.m., all 223 people are on board, ready for the overnight journey. The flight pushes back from the gate and begins taxiing for departure. The night sky over Bangkok is calm, the air still, visibility perfect, conditions pilots dream of. Ahead lies an 11-hour journey across Asia and the Middle East, with arrival in Vienna scheduled just before dawn. The forecast shows some high clouds and minor weather ahead, but nothing significant. After completing their pre-departure checks, the crew lines up the jet on the runway and advances the throttles. The twin engines roar as the 767 accelerates down the runway and lifts smoothly into the night sky. As it climbs, the lights of Bangkok fade behind them. A few minutes after takeoff, air traffic control clears them to climb higher, toward their cruise altitude of 31,000 feet, an altitude the aircraft will tragically never reach. Barely 5 minutes into the flight, a chime interrupts the quiet of the cockpit. The master caution light flashes amber, signaling a system fault. It's not an emergency alert, but it means something isn't right. The pilots consult the engine indication and crew alerting system, known as EICAS. The message reveals a malfunction in the left engine's thrust reverser system, specifically a hydraulic valve issue. To understand the danger, one must know how the thrust reverser works. When a jet lands, the thrust reverser redirects engine thrust forward to slow the aircraft. On the Boeing 767, it's a hydraulically driven mechanism that moves panels on the engine's rear casing. It's only supposed to operate on the ground safety sensors prevent it from deploying mid-air. The system has multiple layers of protection. Yet, the warning meant that the isolation valve for the left engine's reverser might be open when it shouldn't be. The crew references their quick reference handbook, which classifies this as a non-critical caution, not an emergency. The manual advises no action, merely monitoring the system. First Officer Thuma suggests contacting maintenance for advice. Captain Welch, confident the alert is minor, believes it's just a sensor glitch, perhaps moisture in the system causing a false signal. The light flickers on and off. The captain dismisses it as a nuisance. It's just an advisory thing, he says, trusting the safeguards. With that, the crew decides to continue to Vienna. The caution disappears, and calm returns to the flight deck. But only 10 minutes later, the cockpit voice recorder captures chilling words from the first officer. Reversers deployed. At that instant, the Boeing 767, climbing through 24,000 feet at over 400 knots, experiences the unthinkable. The left engine's thrust reverser deploys mid-air. The outer sleeve slides backward, redirecting engine thrust forward, an event no pilot ever expects to face. The aircraft lurches violently. One engine now pushes forward while the other continues to propel the plane. The imbalance causes the jet to yaw sharply to the left. But worse still, the reversed airflow disrupts lift over the left wing, reducing it by nearly 25%. The plane begins banking and spiraling downward. The cockpit fills with warning alarms. Airspeed increases rapidly as the aircraft descends. The pilot shut down the left engine, but the 767 is already diving toward the ground. Outside, passengers scream as gravity shifts. Inside the cockpit, alarms blare. The overspeed warning joins the chaos. The plane is now moving faster than its structural limits allow. Control surfaces feel heavy. The controls barely respond. The pilots pull back on the yoke, trying desperately to level the jet. But the immense aerodynamic forces are too great. The left elevator snaps off the tail, tearing away from the stabilizer. The imbalance worsens. The aircraft rolls violently, and moments later the horizontal and vertical stabilizers also fail. The jet begins to break apart in midair. Flames ignite as the wings bend and tear away, fuel erupting into fireballs against the dark sky. In a matter of seconds, Lauda Air Flight W04 disintegrates, its remains falling toward the dense jungle below. At 11:17 p.m., radar contact is lost. The Boeing 767 has vanished. When rescue teams reach the crash site hours later, the wreckage is scattered across the mountains of western Thailand. The fire has consumed most of the aircraft. Only the cockpit voice recorder survives intact. Investigators from Thailand, joined by Boeing, Pratt & Whitney, and the US NTSB, worked tirelessly to uncover what happened. Through extensive testing, they conclude that an electrical short circuit or contamination inside the control valve could have caused it to move to the deployed position mid-air. When combined with an auto-restow system designed to fix a misread signal, it may have inadvertently triggered the reverser to open while airborne. The tragedy left 223 people dead and forever changed how aircraft systems were evaluated for redundancy and protection. But the exact chain of events, what truly caused the reverser to deploy, remains unknown. Experts later determined that from the moment the reverser deployed, the crew had 6 seconds to respond before recovery became impossible. 6 seconds that sealed the fate of everyone on board. What if the crew had received a single stronger warning, one that made them disconnect the system before it deployed? A simple precaution or delay on the runway might have saved 223 lives. Sometimes in aviation, fate turns on seconds that no one can foresee.